So we're going to start out Unit 2 with Section 3.1, which is going to be sort of our most basic geometric constructions, duplicating segments and angles. So we're going to learn to duplicate line segments and angles. So here are three definitions: sketch, draw, and construct. And in everyday English, sometimes these words are used interchangeably. But we just got done introducing the building blocks of geometry in Unit 1, which consisted of a lot of vocabulary, and we really focused on choosing words carefully when defining terms, right? Say what you mean. And we have to do the same thing with these three words. So let's take a look at what each of them means. To sketch something is to make a freehand sketch of the figure without any tools whatsoever. So if you're asked to sketch a certain figure, you have a picture of that figure in your head, and you simply pick up pencil and you put that picture in your head down on paper. No tools, no straight edge, nothing but your pencil. All right? Now the next word, draw, carefully uses geometry tools to measure and draw. Now, in everyday English, we use the word draw to mean sketch. We sometimes use the word draw to mean construct. And we use the word draw to mean draw. Well, now in geometry, we have to be very careful when we use the word sketch and when we use the word draw. When you draw something, you may use measuring tools like a ruler and a protractor. A ruler can measure distance. A protractor can measure angles. When you use those things, you are drawing. That brings us to the last term, construct. And this is what we're focused on, geometric constructions. It says, uses tools without measurements to construct a figure. This is where your compass and straight edge come into play. You may very well have bought a compass that has numbers on it. Those numbers mean absolutely nothing to us when we are constructing. You may very well be using a ruler as a straight edge. Those numbers on that ruler mean absolutely nothing to us when we are constructing. Okay? When you create a geometric construction, you're using a compass and a straight edge only. And you'll see how we go through that here in a second. So here's our first construction, duplicating a segment. And this is the most basic geometric construction. I've listed 3 steps to being able to duplicate a segment. You can see down below here that I have a segment. Let's call this segment AB. And our job is to take our compass, which we see over here, and duplicate that segment. Right? Create one that is exactly the same. Well, in order to be exactly the same, it just simply needs to have the same length. So here are the steps for doing that. Step 1, make a ray. So we would take our straight edge, and along that straight edge, we would make a ray. Now we know a ray has infinite distance, so we can duplicate any length segment on a ray. Step 2, measure the original segment with your compass. Now the use of the word measure here is a little bit misleading because we are not measuring with numbers. We are taking this compass right here. Oh, let me go back, switch my tool. Take this compass and we place one part of the compass on one end point of that segment. And then we stretch that compass out until the other end of it is on the other end point of that segment. Now, what is the measurement of that compass? I don't know. I don't care. We're not measuring with numbers. You can see on this compass it happens to say 0 degrees and 244. I don't have a clue what those numbers mean, and it doesn't matter. Because when we construct, we are not measuring, we are using compass and straight edge only. So step 3, line up the endpoints and swing. So over here, I've taken the point of the compass and I've lined it up on the endpoint of the ray, and now I'm going to swing an arc through that ray. And it's the intersection of that arc with the ray that I know is the second endpoint of my duplicated segment, right there. So I'm going to now name my duplicated segment A prime, B prime. I, of course, could call it whatever I want. I'm just calling it A prime and B prime to show that A prime corresponds to point A and B prime to point B. Using a compass does take practice. There's certain skill in putting that compass in your hand and striking arcs correctly. So the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. Another point that I want to make, the arc that I made here on the ray, this is what we call a construction mark. Notice I didn't erase the part of the ray that is not segment A prime, B prime. Notice I didn't erase the arc that led me to point B prime. When you make a geometric construction, you need to leave the geometric construction marks. Okay? We will read geometric constructions just like we read words on a page. Okay? We will be able to know exactly what order the person went in based on their markings. So do not erase the geometric construction marks. All right, let's talk about the second construction, duplicating an angle. So I've listed 6 steps here to go through to duplicate an angle. So we're going to work through these 6 steps. You can see there that I have an angle already, and I have my compass. So let's get to it. Step 1, make a ray. Okay? So we would take our straight edge. I'm going to use my ray function on my smartboard. But we would take our straight edge and we would make a ray. Step 2, mark any arc from the vertex of the original angle. Okay, so that means that we're coming over here to our original angle, and we are going to go from our vertex right there, and we're going to strike any length arc with our compass. So let me bring this compass over. I'm going to put the point of the compass right on the vertex of that angle. And I'm going to strike an arc that goes through both rays of that angle. Step 3 then says, copy that arc onto your ray. So leave your compass at the length that it's at. Like, don't widen it, don't make it more narrow, leave it just how it is. Put your compass point on the end point of the ray. And now strike that exact same arc through the ray. Make sure that that arc is sort of big enough that it's going to be able to include the second ray of the duplicated angle. Step 4 says measure the opening of the original angle using the arc. So again, the word measuring is a little misleading. When we measure with the compass, we're not using numbers. We're just determining how much to open our compass. So interestingly, that's about what it is. So what I'm measuring is I'm measuring the distance from where the arc intersects the 2 rays. And once I have that distance measured with my compass, I'm going to come over to my compass, or over to my ray that has the arc. And now this is step 5. Line up the intersection and swing. So I'm going to flip this. Flip that up. I'm going to line up the point of my compass with the intersection of the arc and the ray. And now I'm going to strike a second arc that intersects that first arc. And what I've done is now I've created a point for which the second ray of the duplicated angle will go through. So I take my straight edge, and from the end point of the first ray, I'm going to draw that second ray right through the two intersecting arcs. And now I've duplicated, let's call this angle A. We'll call that angle A prime. So these are our very first geometric constructions. They are very basic. We will get into some very complicated geometric constructions as we go. But you got to start somewhere. We'll take baby steps.